right, welcome, kings and queens. We are back and we are talking Monique again. Listen, that was such a fantabulous, I'm making up my words, fantabulous interview by Shannon Sharpe and Monique. I had to come back because there was something so cryptic that Monique shared and it stood out to me. And I've been perusing YouTube all day and I have yet to hear anyone speak on it. And I took it to bed with me last night and I wanted to say it yesterday while I was recapping the review, while I was recapping, I'm sorry, the interview, which I ended up thoroughly enjoying. Shannon Sharpe really, really took the ball and ran with it. And he did a really good job with Monique. I'm sorry. He disarmed Monique. Now it took about 40 to 50 minutes for him to disarm her, talk her off the cliff. You know, when you have hostage negotiators and you have these hostages that are very aggressive, they're determined and they have an act in mind that they are going to carry out to the finish. And anybody can get it, right? And that's how Monique entered that interview. And Shannon Sharpe, man, I tell you, she even threw out bait to him, which is very narcissistic of her, in my opinion. She even said something of how Skip Bayless handled him and how she was shocked that he didn't man up and handle Skip the way he should have as a Black man. And that was a direct challenge to his masculinity. But what Shannon did, he threw the ball back to her, y'all. This man doesn't realize that he's really good at what he does. So what he did to Monique is he said, that Baltimore is coming out of you. He did not acknowledge the insult the bait. Let me just say the bait. He did not acknowledge the bait that she put in front of him that could have caused him to come out of his professional mode as the interviewer, right? And then he would have had to defend his reasoning of why he did not do what he needed to do, according to Monique, when that white man said and spoke to him in the manner that he did. So that's why I give Shannon his props. And you got to go back and listen to it and watch it and watch it with a purpose and really, really hone in on some of the things and strategies that Monique came to do. She was extremely disruptive at the beginning of the interview. And that's not a bad thing. Some of you are saying, well, why are you saying that? You got to understand, disrupting is kind of interrupting the flow. Disrupting. She was disrupting the mood that he was trying to set, the welcoming atmosphere that he was trying to set to make her feel comfortable. And there's a reason for that, I believe. But I want to talk about it. So there's something she said, y'all, that got my wheels turning. And I knew what I knew, but I said, let me just go back and do some research before I speak on it. Let's jump in. For those of you who are just tuned in, or if you're new to the channel, welcome to the palace. I am Queen Sheba. I cover a variety of hot topics specific to reality television, but most importantly, I hone in on the psychological and the behavioral traits of the Black experience.
Subscribe now.
I want to say something before I get to the nitty gritty, and it's going to be very controversial. And it may be, I'm not going to say triggering, but it may be a little uncomfortable if you do not have a deep understanding of sexual abuse and childhood trauma. Okay. I just want to put that disclaimer out there and I'm going to tie it up. I'm going to hopefully hope it makes sense, but I really want to introduce a notion to you and get your feel and see if it makes sense. First thing, after I recapped the interview and just gave my reaction to it, one thing that occurred to me afterwards is that I highly doubt that Monique will stop speaking on Tyler Perry and Oprah anytime soon, even if they delivered her the apology that she's expecting. Okay? Now, let me tell you why I came up with this. After I had a reaction to the interview and I laid that out and I shared it with you, we're currently reading this book behind my wall, my member wall, called The Atomic Habits. And they talk about the habit loop and habit formation, right? And then the book goes on and it gets into a different topic and it really begins to break down behaviors. And it talks about dopamine, the dopamine effect. And then it hit me that Monique receives a huge dopamine dose by talking about Tyler and Oprah. When she talks about Tyler and Oprah, it's almost as exciting of it's almost as exciting, or it could be almost as exciting for her as the actual outcome that she claims that she's seeking, which is to be restored in Hollywood and be able to work. I believe that she receives just as much satisfaction or just as much dopamine when she talks about Oprah and Tyler. And she's been stuck in this habit loop and this habit formation for quite some time. That's why I think it's going to be very, very hard for her to let it go, because it's self serving. It served her well over the past decade. Now, when Shannon talked about, and he spoke to Monique, follow me very closely. He said, Mo, she said, do you know why you went to the NFL? He said, yeah, I do. I went to the NFL because I wanted to make a better life for my grandmother and my mom. And I knew that I had a very good chance of doing that by going to the NFL. And my physicality could pave the way for me. And he asked her, he said, do you know why you wanted to go to Hollywood or become an actress? She said, yeah. And it's not for my family. That's not the reason I did it. She said, I wanted the fame and I wanted the attention. Shannon, as a Black fat girl, I never got the attention that the other girls would get. So that's why I wanted to go to Hollywood, because of the attention. Are you following me? So the attention that Monique receives from talking about Oprah and Tyler is just as effective as dreaming or aspiring to go to Hollywood. Hold on, let me finish. Well, what's the problem with that, you ask? Nothing, nothing at all. There is nothing wrong with her knowing her reason. And what we call it is your why. She understands her why, WHY. But her why also plays a huge part in why she does some of the things that she's done and continues to do over the course of the past 14 years, because of the attention that it brings. Standing in the gap for Black women, inequality, unequal, unfair pay, attention. Calling out Tyler Perry, calling out Oprah, attention. Challenging a producer on the set of his movie, attention. That little girl that was young and did not receive attention and was abused is still needing the attention to feel validated, to feel heard, to feel recognized. And because of this, I am of the belief, and I'm only doing this as an educational component, right? This is to educate so that we can walk through this together. And I think what happens is, when we have the more wisdom we have, the better we can understand a person and say, oh, that's why. That makes sense now. And now I can pause and I can choose to look at her differently, for those of you that don't have an appetite. And some of you that have commented in my comments and said, I cannot stomach Monique. Monique, as I said before in my previous reaction, I believe Monique is stuck in a matrix. And over the years, the more she tells this story, the more dopamine she receives, this euphoria, this high she receives from telling this story. I believe she's actually created an exaggerated version of her reality. What do you mean, Queen? She has managed to make this a catastrophe. She has managed to make this bigger than what it actually started off to be. Had Monique said, I decline to promo the movie, I just, guys, it just doesn't feel right for me. And maybe this is just me being, an amateur in the industry. I can't justify. I don't have the budget. I cannot justify traveling for free when this is the amount of income that I stand losing, that I could potentially lose, okay? You see how that sounds? That does not mean that they would have offered her something, but that does mean there's a likelihood they could have offered her something. It's not what you say, it's how you say it, and then it's what you do afterwards. There was not a meeting of the mind, and that's not a big deal. It happens all the time. It's how we respond to the perceived insults that often determines the outcome of the relationships that we have with others. And I believe Monique created an exaggerated version of her reality when it comes to what she felt like was Tyler Perry's reaction. It was. He did. He said, "Listen, I did say you were difficult to work with. Listen, Monique, you said you're aggressive. You said all of that." And even though Tyler owned up behind closed doors, right? And never owned up to it publicly, I wonder if she had handled it differently. Even though there was a bit of fallout, I wonder if Monique would have been back to work in a year or so. Had she just backed down from it, allowed things to cool off, and then got back into the game. I feel like Monique has gotten good at pushing her own buttons. Let's take Kevin Hart, for example. Kevin Hart, now we haven't heard his story. Monique said, but what we did hear from Monique is that he was good to her. He was willing to work with her. And then she came with demands. I know some of you say, no, she didn't come with yes, you did. When you're asking somebody to call somebody that has nothing to do with your project, that is a demand. That is a requirement. And guess what he did? He was kind enough to do it because in that moment, she was worth it. It's like your kid, I'ma try, I'ma try. It's like a benefit offer, right? When you say, can I get Fridays off? You know what? Because I like you and you are my first choice and a candidate. Let me go ask HR if we can negotiate a 4-day work week for you. You come back and you say, HR said no. Okay. All right. Well, don't worry about that, Monique. We're gonna focus on what we got. You're gonna work a 5-day work week, and you know what? We're gonna figure it out along the way. Blah blah blah. Kevin, what make it right or wrong? He chose to not go any further with the relationship. Now, that's why I say I believe she's gotten good at pushing her own buttons because just like you choose to forego meeting with Tyler Perry, Kevin chose to forego any further engagement with you. Okay. Now, that's why I said I don't think Monique will continue to stop talking about Oprah and Tyler, even if they apologize. And the reason I say that is because even if they apologize, because she needs the constant flow of attention and dopamine, and now she's an addict to it, right? In my opinion. When I say addict, I'm talking about to the euphoria, the feeling of euphoria, the feeling of getting attention for being salacious and controversial. Even if they apologize, she's going to feel the need to come out and tell us what happened, what the terms of the agreement was, what the conversation looked like, because she needs the attention. Now, please follow me and please understand the goal of this commentary is to not say that she's difficult. I am simply outlining that there are some challenges and there are some barriers as a result of the sexual childhood trauma that she endured. Let's move on. And that's the part I want to talk about. When Monique described her third husband, who is Sydney now, she's been married 3 times, and she gave Shannon the background of she and her husband. She said he was her brother. Shannon said, "You sure, Mo? Mo, you ain't never looked at him like that." She goes, "He was my brother." Nah, he was my brother. That gave me pause. And that was very cryptic to me because she did not say, hone in on friend and repeat friend, 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 friend. She said, he was my brother. He was always there when I was dating other people. My brother. He's my brother. And then I said, let me do some research, y'all. I was like, because that's not enough. Hold on, this is different. Because most women and men describe when something goes from platonic to intimate, you say, yeah, we were friends first. Hardly do you ever hear someone say, we were brother and sister. That's my little sister. That's my big brother. Now, this is where it gets really different. I started to do some research and I found an article that Monique's husband said, quote unquote, before she was my wife, she was my sister. Hicks said via the New York Times, and there have been moments when she was like my little girl. Let me repeat. Before she was my wife, she was my sister, Hicks said, Sidney Hicks, her husband, and there have been moments when she was like my little girl. Y'all, I'm a pause. It's very seldom that you hear a man admit that his wife, his sexual partner, is like his little girl. Because would that would mean or would cause people to assume, that would imply that you're having a fantasy, some type of fantasy of dominating this woman or being able to have some type of control over this woman as if she were a little girl. There's other ways to explain the dynamics without utilizing the words little girl, because little girl is extremely specific. He could have said, my wife is tender. She's vulnerable. You get what I'm saying? But he didn't. Now, some of you say, what's wrong with that? It's different. It's not something that we hear often. And not only that, just like she referred to him as her brother, he referred to her as his sister. They did not say friend. At least he didn't in this article. He did not say she was my friend. He said before she was my wife, she was my sister. Now, that's why I started to do a little research, because I said, in some twisted way, unhealed way, could this be a traumatic bond symbolic of an incestuous relationship? Let me get into it. I believe Sydney symbolizes a heroic stature for Monique by being, as she describes, her brother before he became her husband. Because we all know that her biological brother molested her, sexually abused her at a very young age. However, this brother, Sydney, is the one that has, quote unquote, rescued her, that has, quote unquote, raised her, that has, quote unquote, protected her from the hellhounds, the wolves, the darkness, the bad people in Hollywood. So I believe Monique found, due to unhealed trauma, another brother to be able to save her, because the other brother did bad things. And I believe that Monique, based on research, so then I had to go deeper. I said, well, let me look and hold on now, because I want to make sure I'm just not off my rocker. And I started to get into peer-reviewed articles and did a little bit of research on sexual abuse and, little girls that are sexually abused. What type of partner are they more likely to pick? And it says the role of past sexual abuse may have conditioned Monique's strategy for picking her mate. Because she was sexually abused, it set her up. It conditioned her strategy for picking a mate. Let's break it down. Let's back up before we talk about Sydney. The other two men she describes as she dominated them. She put them in their places. And to me, that's symbolic of a little girl who was taken advantage of, because when I was little, I couldn't protect myself from a man or a bigger boy. And now that I'm married, I run this shit. Now that I'm married, I'm going to dominate you. And I wouldn't be shocked or surprised if Monique has often served or played the role as the more dominant sexual partner in the relationship behind closed doors, causing men to subdue to her. No, surrender. Yeah, putting them in a very submissive position. Nothing bad, just being the aggressor, right? That freaky type shit, whatever. Some of it referred to as domineering, dominatrix. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't know this to be true. It's all alleged. But as I'm getting deeper into the research and I'm seeing that science says that past sexual traumas, they condition you. They condition your strategy as a woman for how you pick the men that you choose to be involved with. Okay. With Sydney, he became a savior. And I can't help but to think maybe Sydney made the cut because Monique got bored of winning and grew tired of winning, subduing men by way of sex, subduing men by way of money, power, position, being the boss. So Sydney enters the picture and he becomes a savior, symbolic of a brother. As a result of past trauma, research shows that women like Monique often develop codependent relationships, which explains the notion of why Sydney needs to be in the room for every meeting that she has. Monique now, in my opinion, have become codependent on Sydney. Many women turn to substance use, okay? Prostitution, drugs, alcohol, promiscuity. You think about the girl that they call Diamond a Body that says, I've been with over how many men? And people were laughing at her. And I didn't. And I said, oh, I knew immediately. I said, she's been sexually abused when she was little. And she did not receive the intense therapy that she needed. So as a result, I am going to give up my body before you take it from me. Therefore, I'm in control. I'm the city girl. I'm the bad bitch. Now, let me get back on topic. So they often pick male aggressive partners. And I said, well, wait a minute. Because based on what Monique is saying, Sydney's not aggressive towards her. He's actually her savior. He actually grew her up, which is very creepy to me to hear her say that. Oh my God, that is just, I don't know. That's just really off-putting to me. But hey, if she like it, I love it. Okay. And then I started to think about Sydney's behavior with the executives in Hollywood. And I said, he's her pusher in the room. He turns into an aggressive male in the room, which is why most people have not been able to develop an appetite for him as a manager. Okay. Much less a husband because they feel like he's aggressive. They feel like he asserts himself. So the aggressive part does apply from the scientific notion, even not directly to Monique as her partner, but directly to those that have to deal with Monique in business. Okay. I wonder. I also wonder if it's Monique's idea. Because of the codependency that most young girls who do not receive treatment often adapt when they grow up to become women who marry, they become extremely codependent. That means they don't want to separate. I need you to go with me in this. I need you to be here. I need you to come talk to Tyler Perry. I need you to address Oprah. I need you to be here when I go live. Codependency, right? I often wonder, now I wonder if it's her idea to drag him along. And let me tell you something. I did some more research. I believe because of Monique's exposure to childhood trauma, Monique may have strong narcissistic qualities, in my opinion. What level, what degree, I'm not sure, but I'll tell you why I believe that. Um, when Monique and Sydney established an open relationship between, I think, 2006 or 2000, between 2006 and 2008, nobody knew that but them. That's the way it should be. Your bedroom life should remain in your home, in your marriage. What happened is Monique did an interview with a Black journalist, And she told that journalist, yeah, we have an open relationship. We're very sexually fluid. And then she goes back home and she tells Sydney, I told that journalist that we sleep with other people, to which he had a reaction to. Get this. He said, you shouldn't have done that. I believe there's some parts and aspects of that relationship that Sydney never intended to become publicized. And the reason why I say that I believe there may be some traits and qualities of Monique that exist that are narcissistic is because of the shock factor. Narcissists most times enjoy making you squirm. So when Monique looked at that journalist and said, yeah, I have an open marriage where we have sexual activities with other people, it wasn't because she wanted to feel liberated, in my opinion. It's because she wanted to take that conservative lady and make her squirm in her seat. And the attention and the dopamine and the rush of euphoria that she gained, in my opinion, from doing that, watching that lady squirm, was a high. Because when she went home to tell her husband what she said, he said, you shouldn't have done that. Okay. And then years after that, Monique and Sydney became the focal of attention because of their sexual activities being publicized outside of their marriage. But Monique was the one that opened her mouth to share that. Okay. Now they gained a lot of public attention from it that I feel like she lavished. After a while, did y'all not know that Monique decided that she no longer wanted an open relationship and that she wanted to close her marriage up again? You know why? Okay. You have to keep in mind childhood trauma, the attention belongs to me. And I believe at some point she realized by having 2 or 3 people in the same bedroom that I'm in with my husband, I don't get all of the attention. I am no longer the focal point because you can't control the curves and the bodies of other women that are in the room, the excitement that your husband may feel in his penis, the erection, the look on his face. And I believe, in my opinion, this is an adult conversation, y'all. We all adults here. I believe that may be a huge reason that she wanted to shut that shit down. It was no longer fun, the dopamine, the rush, the euphoria, because she did not get all of the attention. Okay. I also believe that Monique's smart enough to know, well, at least I hope she is, that if that man, well, I'm going to tell you this. I don't know if she's smart enough or not, but I will say this. Any man that really loves the woman he's with, he don't want nobody touching her. He don't want another man banging his woman, exploring her, causing her to express herself sexually, verbally, the way he does. So I believe Monique shut it down because she knew she ran a risk of losing her husband if he fell in love with another woman sexually, okay? And that's the only control she had, and she wanted to gain it back, in my opinion, okay? So I believe that their relationship, y'all, I'm telling you, she said she had mental health issues. I believe there's a little bit of incestuous appeal here between the two. Now, I don't know. I don't have a lot of intel on Sydney, but I have it on Monique by way of her mental health challenges. She said she used to think some very dark, twisted things, and her husband helped her out of that. Okay. I believe there's a little bit of abnormality in this trauma bond, and I believe that may have been the reason or the cue that DL Hughley's team took to ask her if, who would you want your husband to sleep with, this person or that person? Okay. Um, what are your thoughts? That came across my brain. I did a bit of research. I wanted to just come with some scientific facts. Um, I think a lot of the things that Monique has said and done over the years have been for very selfish reasons, if none other, just to see us squirm, if none other, to watch people squirm in her presence while appearing to dominate them physically, mentally, and emotionally. When she challenged that producer, it was to make him squirm. He didn't expect to be attacked by a worker. Okay. Shared what she shared openly on Tyler Perry, not recording him, it was to make him squirm, y'all. It wasn't for retribution. It wasn't for justice, because there's some parts of Monique that are unhealed. There's some parts of Monique that are dark. And let me tell you why I know it's there. Because if you need your husband to act right, you haven't healed. If you are truly healed, you should be able to carry yourself in a way, whether he's in the room or not in the room. And that's where that codependency comes in. With that being said, let's take it to the chat and let me know what you think.